So hello, it's the 10th of November. I'm Paul Anderson-Walsh and this is Renew Every Morning. Well now, we're kind of coming to the end of this sort of patch that I put onto my book Safe and Sound because I realised I needed to put a bridge before this notion of coming into this extraordinary statement that God is love, because I think that we're so damaged, or certainly maybe I'm speaking to us a very personal level, but I have been so damaged that the idea of engaging with God as love was very complicated for me because I just had no wholesome concept of what love was. So even when I read the words on the page, and as exciting as they are, I still needed that movement towards really understanding this. This is for me. You're talking about me? What? So we've been looking at this series that I've called Love, Noun, Verb and Vision, from unlovable to one loved. And today I want to talk about the idea of friendship as the school of agapē. So what am I thinking about here? Well, you remember we said that there were these three Greek words for love, eros, philia and agapē. And today I'm going to think about this idea of phileo. Now, friendship is the kind of quiet classroom, if you like, where love learns patience. If family is the place we're first known, I think friendship is the place we're first freely chosen. And gosh, do you not remember the first friends you made at school? Oh my God, I'm still so close to my first friend I made in secondary school. I mean, I love him so dearly, and we've known each other for, gosh, best part of 55 years. It's where the raw materials of affection are kind of shaped into covenant, where love grows muscles strong enough to carry both joy and also disappointment. But friendship's not a consolation prize for those who lack romance. On the contrary, it's the absolute practice ground. It's the place where agapē learns, where love literally gives without needing to own anything. So again, yesterday we were trying to renew this word eros, and today we're going to try and renew this word philia. And this is about friendship for me then, as I suppose the lab of loyalty. And it matures eros, desire, and steadies emotion. It trains truth-telling, boundary keeping, forgiveness, and also delight. And it moves us from kind of preference, if you like, into presence. I guess, modern friendship, particularly the social media version of them, I like you because you liked me, or I like you because you're like me. Agapē friendships are different to that. I love you enough when you're not. And I love you enough, literally, to say when you're not lovable. Whatever. Real friendship really survives disagreement because it values connection over comfort. And I think that's an important note to sound on this, because we kind of have these very brittle friendships that don't really amount to very much. So there's a kind of rule of friendship, I guess, which is about delight, disclose, repair, release. So the delight might be this. It might be delight, enjoy one another's being, not just doing, just being with each other. Disclose, speak the truth in love to each other. Vulnerability deepens trust. Repair, when harm happens, and it does, reconcile quickly. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. And release, allow freedom. Love doesn't clutch or cling, never does that. So I think there's something for us to think about friendship as kind of sanctuary, if you like. Every friend that we have, every true friend that we have, every Jonathan to every David, is both a mirror and a midwife, I guess. It reflects truth and it births grace in us. Friendship becomes a kind of a living icon of a divine companionship. I no longer call you servants, Jesus said, but I call you friends. I mean, what an elevation that is from the Lord himself. Imagine that. Now, the thing is, what happens, interestingly, is agapē doesn't typically begin in ecstasy. It begins in just ordinary loyalty, in quiet, reliable, dependable consistency of showing up. Jesus formed a community around friendship. That's what he did. He called his disciples friends, before they called him Lord, by the way. When philia is infused with agapē, and this is the key point here, friendship becomes something very sacramental, a kind of meeting of two souls in which both become, I don't know, more human, more whole. They become completed. To be a true friend, I guess, is to, to risk disappointment, to take the risk and stay anyway. It's to believe the best without demanding the real. It's to offer both presence and also permission. I'm here, you're free. And that's a nice idea, I think. And this is the love that keeps kind of covenant when feelings fade. It holds silence without panicking. It forgives 70 times 7. How many times must I forgive? 70 times 7. What does that mean? And on and on and on and on and infinitely. It rejoices when others, rise higher. It isn't the Gore Vidal point. When a friend of mine succeeds, something inside of me dies. No, it's not. It's when a friend of mine succeeds, something inside of me rejoices. Friendship is how God kind of hides his hands up human sleeves, if you like. So, look, maybe we need to think about friends that God has given us, and just bring a friend to mind, someone you love, and someone perhaps, with whom you feel things are a little unfinished. And maybe we need just to kind of bring those people back to our remembrance. And maybe there's something about being thankful for our friend and asking the Lord just to teach us how to love them well. How do we delight? How do we disclose? How do we repair? How do we release and walk in those new friendships? Well, very quickly, let me just introduce something to you about the idea of kind of the enemy of love, and how you might say, how should I put this? How things edge out our. What is I'm trying to say? I want to talk maybe about the edges of our capacity. Let's do that, because every one of us has a limit, right? We have a kind of line beyond which our love, our brand of love, begins to kind of shake and tremble. It's the point maybe where our friendships turn into fracture, where kindness kind of gives way to defensiveness, where, the name unfriend, which is so easy to do in this day and age, kind of appears in our heart. And yet Jesus placed that line at the very center of discipleship. He said something so interesting. He said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Now, look, it's hard enough to love friends, right, when you're trying to do this in your own strength. But he said, love your enemies. Enemy love is not a command to the strong, It's an invitation of grace to the exhausted. It's to let Christ in us love when we can't love. And there are times and there are relationships that really do take us to the edge. Every natural affection reaches its ceiling. And beyond that ceiling, though, is where divine love begins. The point of collapse is not the point of failure. It's the opening to where grace can flow. And what enemy love is not, however, is not tolerance of abuse or denial of injustice. It's not pretending harm didn't happen. It's not a refusal to let hatred. It's just refusing to let hatred set the terms for your soul. It's about participation, not performance. In 1 Corinthians, as we're going to see, this list is extraordinary. Is literally, it's not a list of heroics you're going to see. Love is patient, love is kind. It's not that. It's a description of Christ's own life flowing through ours. We can't ask to be more patient. We can't ask not to envy. That's not what you're doing. It's literally allowing Christ to be himself. You can't be any more of that. You can just be Christ. We don't manufacture this love. We just participate in it. That's all we do. And if we can do that, then we're living at such a high level It's absolutely extraordinary. When Jesus prayed, Father, forgive them, he wasn't overlooking injustice. He was just overturning the economy of hatred. He refused to let cruelty dictate his consciousness. Enemy love, or loving thy enemy, isn't possible until we realise it's not our love being asked for, it's his love flowing through us. At the cross, what happens is the human and the divine meet, and the limit of love meets the limitless lover. And when you see these characteristics that we're going to step out shortly in 1 Corinthians 13, that's what you're looking at. And it's just bonkers when you think about it. We all have our crosses, we all people, memories, betrayals. You did that, she didn't do this. And each of them becomes, if you'll let them, a kind of doorway for grace to enter. All of them. We don't necessarily start with affection. We start with willingness. And the miracle of grace is that somewhere in the practice, willingness becomes compassion. And I think that might be quite an interesting idea for us, that we could walk in that. Well, enemy love, loving thy enemy, is the final test, I guess, of whether love in us is our own or his. It's the place where self-effort absolutely ends and grace begins. So in the final part of this, and it's literally, I just need to tidy this up and then we can get on into talking about the actual aspects of love. I just want to just talk very briefly about the idea of our lives being a kind of trellis for love. See, a garden without structure becomes overgrown. A vine without support can't rise to meet the sun. And love too needs a trellis. God needs a body, in other words. Not a cage of rules, but a kind of framework, if you like. A lattice work. A way to give shape to what we've seen so that grace it has something to climb up on and build up on. And this really is about this lovely idea of using, building that trellis. And we might need to have a kind of a personal rule of love, so that the revelation of belovedness becomes a sustaining way of being. And that's all I want, really, that you would have a revelation of your lovingness, in order that your total belovedness, in order that it becomes a sustainable way of being for you. So this is about recognizing the rule of love isn't some sort of checklist, it's just a daily returning. Love matures by repetition. Breathe, notice, respond, and rest. And it's got these lovely anchors: the gentle strength of patience and kindness, the ego quietening, this humility and restraint, the truth and gladness of honesty and tenderness, and the steadfast hope, endurance, which is born of trust. And together they kind of form this nice framework for us. And that's really what we're after. Every gardener knows, right, that growth without guidance just gets tangled. And in the same way, love without rhythm, I guess, just drifts. The saints called their rhythm rules. No, they weren't there to restrict, but they were there to remind. A rule of love is a kind of small structure that protects what's precious. Each morning, we might just want to start our day by just declaring, I'll breathe loved, I'll breathe loving, I'll breathe beloved. And maybe we should just practice and repair where I've been wounded. Maybe we should rest from proving. Maybe we should just review and remind ourselves what love has taught us. And it's really very simple. If you don't like Trellis, think about just a scaffolding for grace. It's really important. Love is not built in one moment of inspiration, though. It's over 1,000 small returnings of patience. That's all it is. So, as we come into this season where we're going to look at these extraordinary characteristics, we kind of end where we began, right? And I do say extraordinary. We end in love itself. Not love as performance, but love as presence. Not as something we strive for, but as the atmosphere in which we live and move and have our being. You're not becoming lovable. You're awakening to being one loved. Love will hold you. Grace will help you to soar. And may your life from this day forward become a living witness to the fact that love never fails. All right, I look forward to being with you next time for us to get into these characteristics, and we'll get back into the book. But I hope this little kind of segue has been a helpful little diversion for you. All right, God bless. Bye-bye.